In the NBA, there's players that are loved by everyone, players that stun entire arenas with their pure talent, and players that are generally respected by every other team in the league. But then there's the other side of that, with the players that made a name out of being some of the most hated in the league. Players that played a certain way or did certain things to pretty much get universally hated by NBA fans everywhere, and by most other teams in the league, aside from whichever team they were playing on at the time. So today we're going to be looking at 7 of these players. The list is in no order, so let's start with number 7, Reggie Miller. Reggie Miller is one of the all-time greats, and one of the greatest three-point shooters in league history. But unless you were a Pacers fan, chances were you hated Reggie Miller. Especially if you liked the Knicks or your name was Spike Lee. Because Reggie would do everything you could possibly think of to get under the other player's skin and do things every fan hated too. He was an extremely cocky player, and just as much as he's known for being a great player, he's remembered for trash talking, flopping, gesturing towards the fans, starting fights, and elbowing players. The man knew every single trick in the book to get under the other player's skin, and he knew every way to take cheap shots at them and get away with it. He loved to be the guy to get booed by entire crowds at away games and be thought of as the bad guy, especially when it came to the Knicks and hitting 9 points in 8 seconds. Number 6, Kobe Bryant. Of course, Kobe Bryant was loved by all Los Angeles Lakers fans, but hated by mostly everyone else. And it was for reasons like being a selfish player, being way too hard on his teammates, feuding with Shaq and leading him out of Los Angeles, his off-court accusations, or for just torching fans' favorite teams in the regular season or the playoffs. Even though he's an all-time NBA great, he still had reasons for people to hate him. A lot of the people that hated Kobe in his early career changed their opinions of him towards the end of it and when he retired, but during those early stages, he was definitely one of the league's most hated players. So those people hated it even more when they had to watch him succeed. Number 5, Latrell Sprewell. Sprewell had the potential to be remembered as an NBA great. He was a 4-time All-Star that averaged 18 a game for his career and 20 a game in the playoffs. At times he was great on the court, but he earned his reputation for one of the league's most hated players on and off the court by first bringing a 2x4 to practice to fight his teammate Jerome Kersey, and then years later, when his head coach PJ Carlesimo told him to throw better passes in practice, he choked him out before he got dragged off by teammates, and then 20 minutes later he came back and punched PJ in the face, which got him suspended for 68 games. And of all that, still not enough to hate the man, at one point he turned down a 3-year, $21 million contract because he said it wasn't enough to feed his family. Number 4, Kevin Garnett. We all know KG for his time in Boston and Minnesota, and it's safe to say that he was loved by most of those fans. But he was hated by mostly every other fan and player in the league for being one of the worst trash talkers in NBA history. And I'm not talking about the type of trash talker to get in the other player's head to get an advantage in the game. He would say things to make grown men question their existence. And he was the type of trash talker that crossed the line on what you should ever say to another man on multiple occasions. Some of these include saying dirty things to Carmelo about his wife, calling Charlie Villanueva a cancer patient, and insulting Tim Duncan on Mother's Day because he knew Tim's mom passed away years ago. Even though he'll make it to the Hall of Fame, he made a career out of trash-talking players, trying to intimidate guys every chance he got, and making grown men like Glenn Davis and Andre Blatch cry. Number 3, Metta World Peace. Ron Artest was always a great player and an even better defender, but not just anybody changes their name to Metta World Peace. That can only be done by a man that wants to make up for his past mistakes and get rid of the bad stigma around himself. Ever since the Malice at the Palace, he always had the reputation of being a villain in the NBA. So he did the right thing because he said he wanted to inspire kids around the world, so he changed his last name to World Peace so they could buy a jersey that said World Peace on the back of it. And he changed his first name to Metta, which meant loving, kindness, and friendly. I can't finish that sentence with that playing in the background. How you gonna change your name to World Peace and then take a man's head off his shoulders with an elbow? You can change your name, but you can't change your Mike Tyson arms. Number 2, LeBron James. LeBron was one of the most loved basketball players through his dominant high school career and his first run in Cleveland. He carried the Cavs on his back into the finals and started to become an all-time NBA great. But the fact that he gave himself the King James nickname before he had ever won a championship or even made the finals gave some people the idea that he was a cocky guy. But then in 2010, when he made the decision to leave the Cleveland Cavaliers on national TV and join the Miami Heat to make their big three, he instantly became one of the most hated players in league history. Everyone wanted to see him fail and regret his decision to go to South Beach. So then when he succeeded in Miami and made 4 straight NBA Finals appearances with 2 championships in there, it only got people to hate him even more. He's helped this case out though by returning to the Cavs and completing his mission to bring them a championship. His loyal fans always stayed with him, and he's gained back some of the people that turned on him since he left. That, combined with his consistent success and becoming one of the all-time NBA greats, has earned him a lot of respect from most NBA fans. But there'll always still be those LeBron haters. And number 1, the Bad Boys Pistons team. And I know what you're thinking, how could I put an entire team as number 1? But there's 3 or 4 people from this team that deserve a spot on this list. So instead of taking up 3 spots, it's easier to just put them all in one. But with that being said, the Bad Boys Pistons team was probably the single most hated team in NBA history. They were mainly known for playing extremely rough defense to get under the other player's skin and for trying to start fights with the other teams. The standout most hated was without a doubt Bill Laimbeer. But we still gotta talk about the team as a whole and guys like Isaiah Thomas, Rick Mahorn, and Dennis Rodman. But we'll start with Laimbeer. He was a pretty good center, but he was the most hated because he was one of the roughest and dirtiest players on the team. And then that, combined with the fact that he was born into a rich family, just rubbed people the wrong way. And not to mention that he was the one that organized the idea of the Pistons walking off the court before getting swept by the Bulls in the '91 playoffs, so that they didn't have to shake their hands. And then as for Isaiah Thomas, he's one of the best point guards in NBA history, but he got a lot of backlash for walking off the court because he was one of the leaders of that team. And he got even more hate for saying that if Larry Bird was black, he would just be another good player. And then outside of the Bad Boys, Magic Johnson wrote in his book that when it came out that he had HIV, Isaiah thought that Magic was gay because back before all the information we have today, he thought it was only something gay men got diagnosed with. All of this led to him being kept off the '92 Dream Team because Johnson said that him or any of the other players really didn't want him on the team. And then there was Rick Mahorn, who was never really a great player in the NBA, but made his career out of being one of the dirtiest in league history. He would constantly scream at referees and try to get into fights with the other team's best players so he could throw them off their game. One of the more popular examples of this came in the 1989 playoffs when the Cleveland Cavaliers, when they were looking like they were headed to take the #1 seed in the East. But that was until Mahorn elbowed their star point guard Mark Price in the head and gave him a concussion. And then that led to him missing enough games to where the Pistons could take the #1 seed in the Eastern Conference. And then along with all of this, on the same team there was Dennis Rodman. He was never a liked player for all of the following reasons. For leaving his team during the '92 finals to wrestle with Hulk Hogan, showing up to his book signing in a wedding dress and saying he was bisexual and going to marry himself, having an affair with Madonna, and kicking a cameraman. None of this happened when he played on the Pistons, but he was another one of their rough players. All of this, combined with the fact that he was always a strange dude, led to people not liking him, including his former teammates Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan. For all of these reasons, the man definitely could have had his own spot on this list, but instead I decided to include him here. So there you have it. Whether it was by other players, the fans, or a combination of both, these were the 7 most hated players in NBA history. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it, definitely like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you next video.